DOS.
Right?
I think you guys are starting to show your age.
Starting to.
That's okay, I asked Cameron earlier, I said, I used to do billing in DOS, and he goes, what's DOS? I said, oh boy, I think we're aging ourselves.
Send people to the moon and DOS.
That's back when you had to really edges on.
We seriously did utility billing in DOS, and then we printed them on a dot matrix printer.
We did it when you had to have
I
this.
never knew
Yeah,
that.
there you go, with the handwritten ledgers.
And no calculators.
And Brian's on the edit.
And after 10, you couldn't use your fingers no more.
Yep.
I had calculus before,
That's rich.
before we could use calculators in it.
My first calculator was $74.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I got an electric, you know, I thought I just hit the bar. Yeah, I never used one before.
My typing class was the first year we had electronic typewriters used.
I worked at an old-fashioned soda fountain where it had you push the little round buttons on the cash register and, yeah, do that.
I went to school at St. John, and we had the first IBM selectric typewriters in Champaign County.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Whatever year that was, 71.
Oh, wow.
Okay, gang, I've got 7:30, can we ready again?
Ready?
And there's still a lot more outhouse in there.
Welcome. To start the meeting off, I've got an oath of office. Normally I swear in like one or two. We're going to do all of you at one time. So if that being said, I'm going to cheat and read off of Cameron's as we do this. Let's see.
Rick Ridley.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, first of all, let me explain a couple things. I'm completely socially inept. I'm name challenged, so it's going to take me a little while to work that out. So if I screw up people's names, just accept that's one of my social disabilities here. But that being said, if you guys would all raise your right hand, and instead of repeating after me, just say that I'm going to do it this way. Do you hereby affirm that you'll support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and you'll faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Sangamon Valley Public Water District Board of Trustees to the best of your ability? Perfect. You all have a oath of office in front of you. If you would sign that, I'll take it back, I'll notarize it, I'll file it for you, and I'll send you a letter with your file stamped copy. So you are now officially
Sworn in.
sworn in and board members of the district. Now, the other thing is I've got street addresses for everybody. I don't have phone numbers. And I don't think, when I talked to Sonia earlier today, we didn't have phone numbers for everybody, so.
I just had Constance.
Right, so that being said, I know I've got yours somewhere, but if you, I've got your names here, if you would write your phone number to the right of your name, and I'll make a copy of this and give this to Constance so she has that.
Do you want our cell phone numbers or a landline or whatever?
That's a good question.
I've got stuff that.
Cell phone numbers would be best, but if there's a daytime number that we can't reach you on your cell phone, then let me have that, if I could.
So we'll give you your cell phone number first and then our landline.
That'd be great.
Works for me.
Don't write big either, there's not much fun.
Say no, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I didn't think about adding that in.
All those people write big.
Just real quick, if the new board members will stick around for just a moment after the meeting, I've got your Sangamon Valley email addresses and temporary passwords, everything on little slips of paper for you. And then I've just got a contact information sheet that I would like you to verify and just put your phone number on quickly.
Sangamon Valley email addresses, let me encourage you to use them, okay? So just a little history of me. I represent lots of units of local government. This is the 3rd sanitary district I represent. I represent multiple villages, towns, cities, libraries, fire protection districts, park districts. I don't represent any schools. That's about the only unit of local government I don't represent. But, so you want to use the Sangamon Valley email address, because if you choose to do email on your personal or work email, and somebody sends us a FOIA request and it gets all screwed up and we end up in court, your personal computer is going into a courtroom somewhere. But if you're using the Sangamon Valley email address, we don't have that problem. So I had a guy at the Decatur Park District that worked at ADM, and he just insisted on using his ADM email till I explained to him the ADM officials aren't going to be happy when the sheriff walks in and takes your computer one day. Would you please use the email? So now he uses the Park District email. I got us a little off the agenda, and I'm going to get us back to it in a minute. The district is part of the Rural Water District, and I looked on their website, but I had full court press all day. So I didn't get a chance to see if they have any conferences for newly elected officials. I'll do that and get a letter out to you. What I did do was make a copy of the Illinois Municipal Guide. Now, you're not a municipality, but it does give you some information about what newly elected officials can expect, or to be careful what you wish for, one of the two. And along those lines, let's get us back into the agenda. So normally the agenda is the chairman of the board runs the agenda, and that's number 6 on your agenda, but we haven't asked for public comments. So let's skip to number 6. Let's take care of your election for the chairman of the board and vice chairman of the board, and then we'll turn it over to the chairman, and we'll just kind of work through this first agenda. So we can do the chairman of the board a couple of different ways. My suspicion is, and my hope is, that you've kind of talked to each other amongst this. If you have a chairman in mind, we can make one motion and nominate a chairman and a vice chairman, and if you vote on it and we're good to go, then we can do that. If you don't have one in mind, then we'll do that in a second. And it doesn't matter, because you can still be chairman for just 2 years if you want, if you wanted to. So, sorry, I'm anticipating questions as I saw Constance's note there. So, that being said, tell me, do you have a chairman in mind? Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, we do.
Okay, do you have,
So I motion that we make Cameron Wygan chairman and Mark Reestek vice chairman.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations, not only are you newly elected board members, but the 2 new officers. Also, be careful what you wish for, guys. I'm just being sarcastic, so you can ignore my sarcasm here.
Are you really though?
No, I am. Now, this will be a little bit of a clumsy start. I've never represented a place that had all new elected officials at one time. So we'll be off to a little clumsy start. I will tell you this. There's no question that you ask that's a bad question. Because if you're thinking of that question, other people might be thinking of that question too. And I promise you, any question you ask is a good question, and we'll get it addressed. So we've got the agenda. Cameron is the chairman, and so I'm going to turn the meeting over to him. We'll let him follow the agenda. And only for this meeting, and I probably will try not to do it again. I know you guys have been here at meetings before. You'll notice that my role is to give legal advice, and my role is not to insert myself into the meeting unless something's, oops, yeah, keep covering that thing unless something's going off the reservation or I just need to correct something. But for this meeting and maybe, well, and I only come to meetings when you need me, so that I don't know when the next time we'll be here, but I might interject myself a couple times today, and then after that, I think you'll get along fine. But I'll turn the meeting over to Cameron, and we'll probably start, we don't really need to approve the agenda. I think we just start with public comment. We've already done the oath of office, and then we'll move on down the agenda.
Is there any public comment? Let's sign into the sheet. I didn't know there was a sign in sheet.
Okay, that's all right.
We put it in the other.
Okay, my public comment is going to be generally directed at the Viola contract that the previous board approved. And I'm going to start with, I think you should rescind or work to cancel that contract for the following reasons. The Open Meetings Act, I believe, was violated on the agenda because the agenda didn't specifically state that the public body was going to vote on a contract. That public body knew how to write an agenda. Previous agendas said vote on XYZ, approve XYZ, but that agenda did not. That just said Viola contract. The public could not have known that you were going to vote on that contract. That they, probably, I'm saying you, talking about the board, not the board members that are here present. The public did not know and could never have known that that contract was going to be voted on. Now, the public has a right to know what action is going to be taken. The Attorney General, I published an article this morning. Section 2.02C, the agenda required shall set forth the general subject matter of any resolution or ordinance that will be subject to the final action of the meeting. There was a recent binding opinion in 2022 that the agenda has to be made so the public is aware of what actions the board is considering taking. And in this instance, it was insufficient detail to notify members of the public of the types of final actions the public bodies were going to take. And we, in 2016, there was an appellate court that determined that generic items on the agenda violated the Open Meetings Act for being generic, and number two, if they didn't inform the public prior to the vote, the general subject matter or the information to let the public know what they were fixing to vote on. So they could have said, vote on Viola contract, and then before the vote said, hey, this is a contract for 5 years, we're going to pay them X amount of dollars, it's for these services here. And that would have sufficed under the Open Meetings Act. And the next point is that contracts can't bind the hands of future boards. That was back in Milliken versus Edgar County, I think in the 40s or 50s, maybe the 1800s, I can't remember. But that's a Supreme Court precedent, and it still stands good today. If a board has the power to enter into a binding contract with a character for 3 years, no reason to proceed why it could not make a contract for 5 or even 10. And if this is done, the hands of succeeding boards will be tied, and the power is taken from them. And the court went on to say it's clear that when newly elected board members are unable to legislate regarding matters affecting government and involving county or district property held in trust, which is subject to an outstanding lease executed by their predecessors in office, their hands have been effectively tied. The voices of those members, the new board members, commencing their new terms, whose election reflects the most recent expression of the will of the electorate, will be silent. And with respect to the use of such property of the county, this result this is the result which is to be avoided. The Supreme Court said that, probably over 100 years ago, and it's still good case law today. Now, I understand, you probably haven't read the Public Water District Act yet, and my final issue is Section 7 of the Public Water District Act. It says that the board, and I looked at the rest of the act, and I could find no place where the board can contract out management of the district. I can't find that anywhere in the act. But it says the board can appoint a general manager to serve a term of 5 years. And the compensation shall be fixed by resolution of the board. Such general manager shall devote his time exclusively to the affairs of the district. How can a contract with a private company devote their affairs exclusively to the district? If you decide that a private company qualifies as a person and also qualifies as a general manager, a private company, no offense, is managing more than this water district. And the act says the general manager shall devote his time exclusively to the affairs of the district. There's other public offices that have the same restrictions, like the supervisor of assessments in a county. They have to devote their time exclusively to the county. The general manager has to devote his time exclusively to the water district. That means the general manager can't manage the city water on the side. He can't make money farming when he's also a general manager. I think we all know what exclusively means. And in addition to that, even though you can appoint him for 5 years, the general manager may be discharged at a meeting of the Board of Trustees upon a majority vote of the members. I mean, even if there's a 5-year deal, if they were devoting the time exclusively to the district, you can still terminate the general manager at any board meeting by a majority vote of the members. Several years ago, that was a unanimous vote of the members. We lobbied to get that changed because of what happened in Edgar County. And it was changed to a majority of the members. So I ask you to look at the Water District Act and look at the case law. Well, first, I ask you to get a different attorney. No offense, Mr. Flynn, but...
Oh, no, we've been down this path before.
If somebody...
I do take offense to it.
Well,
But, you know, the last time I was in court with you guys, you had that issue with me in, down in, what county were we in? Shelby County, and I prevailed there too.
Well,
So I do take offense to it.
You
So
wasn't
don't sit here and say, no offense, Mr. Flynn. It's
You
perfectly
wasn't in court with me,
Yeah,
or with the Edgar County Watchdog.
Yeah, I was.
This is not your meeting. Why are you speaking?
So, I would suggest you terminate the attorney, because I'm assuming he assisted in creating this contract that is probably invalid, because you can't contract out your general manager position. They're not exclusively devoting the time to the district. And you could also terminate the general manager at any meeting. So please get another attorney. That's all I have. Thank you.
You didn't introduce yourself. Why don't you tell us your name?
I don't have to introduce myself, but I will. I'm John Kraft, and I'm with the Edgar County Watchdogs.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't take care of that.
So we've got this taken care of. Let's draw lots for office terms and then we'll go on to number 7, okay? Or do you have,
Draw lots.
okay.
We just put our name in the hat, or, I mean,
There's a variety of ways you can do this. So you have to decide between 2 and 4-year terms. So we've got 3 2-year terms and 4 4-year terms. If somebody wants to volunteer to be a 2-year term, otherwise we're just going to
That was easy.
Okay. Well, that takes care of 1 2-year term.
I'll take a second.
Okay. So, let me see. Here.
I'm Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we've got 2 2-year terms taken care of. So we can do a variety of things. If somebody has a hat and gentleman with the Under Armour hat wants to donate.
Wait a
do,
minute.
I'll just do the,
His wife's here, oh, not right?
What's that?
Selling their feet. You'll use your hat for that?
I'll just do the 2-year.
Okay.
Rich Erdman.
Taking pictures of your feet
Take pictures of my feet
with your hat.
with my hat.
You don't remember our first conversation then, huh? I asked you about your truck.
Oh, now I remember. No, we're good.
Okay, so the 4-year terms are Cameron, Steve, Brian, and Mark, and the 2-year terms are Constance, Tom,
Rich.
Rich, sorry, I had it written down, I just skipped over it. All right, now, we've got to appoint a board secretary, treasurer, and FOIA officer. The treasurer, I don't know where the district banks, but one of the simple ways to address the treasurer and keep it inexpensive is you just have one of the bank officers appointed, pay them an annual per diem of $250, they sign some documents, and that makes it an inexpensive vehicle for appointing the treasurer. So if you'd like to explore that, we can reach out to the bank where you guys bank, which I'm not sure which bank that is, Sonia.
I think it's First
First
Mid.
Mid, we have accounts at First Mid and Heartland.
Okay, so we can reach out to somebody at First Mid and see if somebody wants to be the treasurer for $250. Is that?
That's a good idea.
Okay. I know some bank officers at First Mid, I'll reach out to them and send emails out to everybody. When do you think we'll get emails set up?
I have them ready, they just, and I have their temp passwords ready to go. They'll just need to get in and use the temp password for the first time, set up their official password, and I have all those slips ready to go for it at the end of the meeting.
Okay, perfect. So in a couple days, I can email everybody, or tomorrow.
Should be able to tomorrow, as long as they get in there and get them set up.
All right.
And
They're active, so you could literally email them right now and they'd receive it.
Okay.
And Sonia said she'd be available if anybody's technically challenged setting it up.
You got it, I put my office number and everything on the slip of paper, so you'll have that, I know. And then, tomorrow I'll have my Veolia phone number, cell phone number, so you'll be able to reach me there as well.
Sonia,
Yes,
so, just to let you know, I have an email, I never use it.
okay,
It's never been used.
okay,
I carry my email address in my wallet, because I
okay,
don't even know what it is.
all right.
So I will be technically challenged.
You are welcome, and I will be in the office from 8 to 4:30 tomorrow, all day, except for from noon to 1. I go to lunch from noon to 1. At any point in time, any other than noon to 1, I am in the office, and you all are welcome to come in. We can get the laptop out, or we can sit at my desktop, and we can get it all set up and ready for you, okay?
Okay,
We'll also go ahead and set you up on your phone, so that all you will have to do is push your little email app icon, and it'll open right up. And
wow,
and
you do all that for me?
I can do all of that for you, yes, sir, and then you can call me and I can walk you through getting in at any time you want, all right?
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I would pay somebody to do that, but in this case.
That's okay, that's
yeah,
what I'm
I
here
have to.
for.
Well, I've known, I tell a lot of people, I said, I'm a living dinosaur, so.
And that goes out to everybody. Anytime you need help getting in anything or any, through any a document or anything electronically, just give me a call. I can walk you through all of that over the phone, okay?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Question for you, Ed, on treasurer, when you guys do that treasurer route like that, say the bank does go along with it, and do they sign the check and then you have a second signature on your board?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a good question. The treasurer just basically signs a few annual statements, your annual filings with the state of Illinois and things of that nature. Your checks, so I recommend, and I don't think this is what the district did before, but I recommend that all of you sign the check writing authority, and then only a check must be signed by two of you.
Okay.
So they've got 5 here, signatures here. Do we have another form here available?
I do not, but I can get
We,
one for
we,
you
we
quickly.
can just make a copy of this, so we'll put 5 on one form and 2 on the
Yep.
other.
Kurt,
So-
you have a copy in the other room?
Yeah, I have a question. So, two signatures, does one of them have to be the chairman, or can it just be 2 board members?
2 board members.
Okay.
And the checks that the staff prepares for you, or that are prepared for you, should only be the checks for the bills that have been approved by you at the meeting, and then the checks are signed following the meeting to pay the bills that you've approved during the meeting. Now, there's no bills to be approved today, but we're going to get into meeting dates and things like that for you down the road. So you've got the treasurer with to be determined, and I'll figure that out with the bank for you. Did Sonia just leave?
Yeah, she's right there.
Okay, so we're going to need a FOIA officer from one of the board members here. Now, I'm guessing that Sonia's going to still gather things, but we'll need a FOIA officer here to be the person responsible for submitting.
You have that sheet that she was using to copy of.
Oh, sorry, there you go. So one of you has to step up and be a FOIA officer.
I'm willing to do that.
Mark said he would do it.
I'm retired and close by and.
We work well
Yeah, we
together.
work well, sure we do. And we're gonna get better even.
Great. And then a board secretary. Sonia, how you doing?
How are you?
I'm fine. You willing to be the board, I didn't talk to you in advance, so if I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize. You willing to be the board secretary?
Yeah, Cameron and I discussed earlier,
Yeah,
and as
yeah.
long as we,
Okay.
we both agree to uphold our agreement, you know, what we said earlier, I'm good with that.
Okay, good. All right, so I need for somebody to make a motion to approve Mark as the FOIA officer, board secretary, Sonia, and the treasurer to be determined.
I second.
First, okay.
I'll second.
All right. And I'm kind of doing Sonia's job here, but that's okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? Perfect.
Moving on to on-board required trainings.
Okay, the IML guide that I passed out for you, as I said, this is not, you're not a municipality, but in here it does have the information about the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act. The Open Meetings Act has a website with the state of Illinois that you've got to go on and take the test. If you're not, under no circumstances would I be insulting to somebody, but we've already had one admission of somebody that was being a dinosaur, so if you,
In case you missed it,
I was just gonna say, at any point in time, if we would all like to set up a schedule, we can meet in here. We can do this training right here on the computer, and that way, if anybody has any questions, I've gone through it twice. Or you're welcome to come in and meet with me individually, and we can do that as well. It's whatever everybody's comfortable with.
I got mine done for the Open Meetings Act, do I just need it?
yeah, can we just give this to
Yep.
Sonia?
No problem.
So I'd like everybody to get that Open Meetings Act training done.
Well, the FOIA only needs to be done by the FOIA officer, doesn't it?
Yeah. But if you can get that open meetings work done in the next 30 days, you'll get a certificate, and we'll put it in a file here for you. That'd be great.
I've tried to get on that a couple times. I haven't been able to get on to it yet.
For the,
Open meetings,
Open
yeah.
yeah, I know that website has had some issues with the state of Illinois.
I think what I ended up having to do is I Googled Opens Meeting Act, and I actually went to a third-party place that said it takes you to it. So I clicked on the third-party place, and it took me to the Attorney General's website, but it actually looked a little different than when I went to the Attorney General's site directly. And then I followed the directions on the third party where you have to go up and you have to go in and register. So that's up in the top right-hand corner. You have to go up and register, and then up towards the top left-hand corner is once you register, then you can go on Open Meetings Act or something, training, go to training, I think it is. And then in there.
Dr. Johnson, if you wanna come in, we'll just.
I was gonna say, is there anything any simpler?
Well, if you're gonna come in for your email, maybe you can
I was
schedule.
gonna say, we'll just get it all done at
But
one
that's,
time.
this is 101 pages.
We'll just plan it out half a
It takes
day
a
or
while.
so.
So those are some requirements for you as a office, as elected officials.
Well, what about the other trainings here? You gonna touch on those, or?
Well, the sexual harassment training is by ordinance.
It's by Illinois state law as well.
I mean, where, are we doing that as a group? Or what?
That might be more of a challenge to get it done as a group. If you just see Sonia, I think she can get you through those.
I can get you through
Through both of those? And I don't know, I guess I had a question, and I don't know if this is a place for it, but when he was speaking, when Mr. Kraft was speaking, I actually had a question for him, but is it correct that we're not supposed to respond to
Questions from the public?
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Or statements from the public?
ideally, the things that he had to say.
Well, I'm not talking about what he said, I'm just saying, I'm asking what is our responsibility from there, from that?
To simply take those comments, look into them, and address them.
Or not do it, ask a question,
There's no need to address them tonight, no.
or that person, if you have a question of what he's stating.
It's entirely, at that point, it's entirely the pleasure of the board.
It
Whatever
is,
you'd like
okay,
to do.
all right. Okay. I just wanted to know if it was the state Supreme Court or the federal Supreme Court. On that. State Supreme Court.
You wanna do the meeting schedule and dates before we do the drawing, you know?
Sure.
Moving on to meeting schedule and dates. I think we had all discussed, possibly moving meetings, or is it, do we wanna move the meetings from Mondays at 3:30 to a different day, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just about any day would work for me, but as far as the time, 5:30, 6 o'clock is fine with me. I just think 7:30 is a little late, but, you know, we're gonna discuss it here.
I think we had discussed maybe moving to Tuesdays at 5:30.
Tuesday at 5:30, is that fine with everybody?
And that was like the fourth.
It'd be the fourth Tuesday?
I make a motion, we move the meetings to the fourth Tuesday of the month at 5:30 p.m.
To be held here, right?
To be held
Be
here.
held here in the boardroom.
Everyone in favor say aye.
Need a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, second. I thought Tom seconded.
Sorry.
Second.
Aye.
Now, if I'm not out of place, did we say something about meeting again in between this meeting and the fourth? No? Okay. I withdraw that question.
So, Sonia, you'll need to send out a summary of the meeting dates and times to the local media.
Didn't we discuss too, to go ahead and move the May 22nd to the 23rd? The
Well, that would be the fourth Tuesday.
Yeah, we've got time to do that yet, to notify the public, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, no, you've got plenty of time, so,
Yeah, the one that's on the 22nd, we talked about moving it to Tuesday.
well, yeah, because what Sonia's gonna do is get out an email. So you're setting your meeting dates for your year of May through April. So your first meeting will be May
Oh, okay,
23rd
okay.
at 5:30.
Yeah, okay. Right,
So I need to send that through April,
I'm sorry.
through April of 2024, I need to have
Yes.
it sent for, okay.
Copy me on that, so I take
I'll send it to you for approval first.
Okay, great.
All right, a motion, can I get a motion to approve the new, or do we already do that? We already did that.
First, second.
First, second.
No, I already
You
did,
did?
first and second, yeah.
We'll move on to the Donahue in-depth project updates.
All right. Somebody's got some slides to kind of go through here. So I'll just kind of walk you through. I've got a lot of slides, a lot of details, so ask questions. And then certainly if we don't cover it all, and there's more questions that come up, feel free to ask me. So my name is Terry Boyer with Donahue. Will Gray, my cohort from Donahue, is going to be here tonight, but we found the meeting at 7:30. He's got kid duty, so I told him I'd handle it this evening. So you just go to the first slide here. You don't mind. So what I'll do is I'll highlight a couple of projects that we just recently completed. Just give you an idea of some of the things that have been happening, and then the projects that are under construction right now, and then the ones that we have under design that will be coming under construction, and then future thoughts on possible future projects, things we've identified throughout the years that may be things you want to think about taking
And
action.
these all are specifically with the water district,
Correct.
not the sanitary.
Oh, well, both, with the water, wastewater,
Okay.
yeah. So, so you can go to the next slide. So, some of the recently completed projects, just in terms of what you have at the water treatment plant, we did some acid cleaning systems in order to clean out the big, I don't know what you call it, the big control valve.
Purex valve.
Yeah, the Purex valve there, so we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But so that's all been permitted. In the not too distant past, we had a surge issue, electrical surge at the water plant and the wells. So we helped the district figure out just real inexpensively to get a surge protection device that would go in front of the main control, electrical panel at the water treatment plant. At the wastewater plant, did they bury the lines yet out there? So Ameren, buried all the overhead lines. That was an issue with bird strikes with the power lines. So they wanted to come in and bury those lines. It was an effort because we're doing a bunch of work at the wastewater plant. We wanted to coordinate where they're going to put their duct bank and where we're going to put a bunch of new piping here in the future. So, and then the other thing that just was completed recently was a washer compactor. I'll show some slides about that here in just a minute. I think there's maybe a couple little glitches left to work out. Is that true?
Just a few.
Yeah.
It's running pretty good right
Yeah, so it's run. So here's the washer compactor. So at the wastewater plant, when the wastewater comes in, you have stuff we call screenings. It's material like rags, it's debris, it's stuff that could go in and clog pumps, those kind of things. We have a screen that goes in front of that, catches all that stuff, brings it out. What you used to have here was just a way to go into some containers to hold it. Because it was so wet, the guys had to bag it in plastic bags, otherwise the disposal company wouldn't take it. So it was a big health and safety concern. So what we did is we went ahead and worked with the district and ordered the washer compactor because it was going to take 3-4 months to get it here. And once it got here, local contractors came in and set it up for the district. So as well as the vendor. You can go to the next slide. So that's the installation was completed. I think it was around February time frame, right? And then
Yep, March 10th it went online.
okay, so it's in place now. So now what that does, it takes the screening material, kind of pushes the water out of it, drops it into a container, and now the disposal company doesn't have an issue with taking it to the landfill.
So it's still damp a little bit.
It's still a little damp, yeah. It's not gonna be perfectly dry, so.
It's the best part of the tour, though.
So, the other one now that's under construction is the Mahomet lift station. This is out behind one of the Village of Mahomet buildings. Old lift station, it's got a lot of electrical and controls for what was originally being thought to be replaced out there. When we got into it, the pumps are old, the valves are old, the piping's old. So we did the whole replacement out there. So that, we have a contractor on board. That contract, we go to the next slide.
That's the one located at the Parks and Rec
Yes,
department, right?
yeah, yep. So the only thing we really left there was the generator and the, the gas system. But otherwise, the automatic transfer switch, the controls, the electrical, pumps and piping are all being replaced. We're expecting the materials are going to come in October, so the contractor's just been ordering materials. And then hopefully November, December, it should be a pretty, simple switch out of all the materials. So I'm going to go to the next one. So the other one we identified, so this is the wastewater plant. The small lagoon on the left side where you see all the dots in it, the bunch of dots, that's the first cell where everything comes into right now. Over the years, that's where all the heavy deposits of material come in, so that's kind of gotten filled with sludge over the years. So if you go to the next slide, we had a company come in and run a little sonar boat back and forth on it, and we measured the depth of the sludge. We can go to the next slide. So, we figured out all this that was there in that first cell. We're going to be doing a lot of work in the entire wastewater plant, replacing those diffusers. So the thought was, let's get that sludge out of there first, so we can make a clean go of it, and we have to get in there and do the rest of the work. So, again, the contractor's on board for this. They're going to take the sludge out and land apply it to a field somewhere, so the contractor's responsible for all that permitting. So what he's waiting on is for farm fields to open up after harvest in the fall, and he should be getting the permit here this summer, and he'll mobilize to remove all that sludge. So then this one here, so this is under design now, Lake of the Woods lift station. So this is here across from the golf course. It's a can type lift station. I'll have some drawings for that to kind of show what a can lift station is. If you go to the next slide, you can go to the next slide. So it's can lift station, so it's a 30-foot deep lift station. And right now, in order to access the pumps, the guys have to crawl down a ladder. They get to a landing spot about halfway down or so, and then have to open another hatch and go down the rest of the way to access the pumps and valves and piping down there. So what municipalities and districts have been doing over the years is replacing these with submersible lift stations where we can pull a pump from up above out on rails and get to it and access it without having to crawl down into a submerged station. So what we're planning to do is to construct a new lift station on a district property that's right to the north of the lift station. Go to the next slide. As a part of that, the force main that leaves that conveys the raw sewage to the collection system, right now, you can see a little red dashed line at the bottom. There's a 6-inch force main. It ties in on Gulf Drive into an 8-inch collector sewer. So what we're wanting to do is take that all the way up to the north, that orange line, that's a 15-inch sanitary sewer. So with the potential growth that might happen for the lift station in the future, we wanted to get that flow into a bigger line, so preserve the capacity of these smaller lines. So that force main is going to be extended. So we can go to the next slide. So this is just pictures of the existing lift station site. On the right, that's the quote-unquote can that they've got to climb down, to access the equipment. So it's a safety issue, and that's why we put this on a priority list to get replaced. It's an IEP loan project, so I'll talk about how the loan process is working on a later slide. But this is about a $1.4 million effort. Go to the next slide. So this is just a section view of what's there now, can lift station. It is not to scale. It doesn't look like it's that, it's not that deep, come on. But it's 30-foot deep. So just a depiction of, these were pretty popular back in the 60s to put these in. They're a nice way to contain everything, drop them in a hole and be able to work on it. But over the years, things have been happening such as, usually the metal cans come with a sacrificial anode. over the years, that goes away. Now your metal starts to corrode. Now it's in danger of, kind of caving in. As well as more modern rules requiring confined space entry. So this is just a nightmare for the guys that have to get down and work on it.
Does
So
that have a bubbler too?
It used to.
Okay. I was
It's
gonna say that's,
transducer.
okay.
Trust me. It's transducer.
you go to the next slide. So this is what the new station will look like. This is more to scale. So you can see it's a deep excavation. It's a 30-foot depth here. Now instead of having to go down and work on the pump, we can slide the pump out on rails. The valves and piping are all up in a valve vault. There's no meter right now on the existing station, so we'll have a mag meter on here so we can measure flows and keep better track of things. So, we can go to the next slide. So this is just the existing site layout, just to give you a flavor of where things are now. So this is what we call our removal drawing. So we're just basically gutting most of those components, reusing the wet well part of it to take the flow back over to the new lift station, which we built to the right up here to the north. And if you go to the next slide, so that kind of shows, we're going to the north here and building a new wet well, new valve vault, new meter vault, and then we'll connect back out to the existing force main. And then, like I said, we'll be extending that force main, up to that 15-inch.
How close is the new one coming up to the existing home that's there?
There's a pretty big buffer over
Is
to the north. There's a pretty good field over there, so we're not too close to it at all. So, all right. Briarcliff water main. So I think Will gave me the cheat notes on this, but this I think is one of the oldest sections of water main.
It's our only cast in the district.
It's cast. Yeah, that's what he said. Only cast. So we're going to be replacing all that with new PVC water main. We've got about 50% of the design plans are going to be ready here soon. We'll be planning a meeting with the district to go over that. So that's under design right now. Go to the next slide. This other one is there's an EPA requirement that all municipalities that have wells have to do source water protections. We got to make sure we're protecting the wellheads. We're not allowing anything to contaminate the water source. Bigger municipalities had to, by the summer of last year, do what's called the source water protection plan. Your size community is now in that tier of having to do it by July this year. Smaller communities are then being forced to do it in 2024. So that's just being started. I think there's a lot of stuff that Will's probably asked you guys for, I think.
Probably.
Yeah, so we're getting all that stuff together. It's kind of a standard plan, protection plan, but that will be, hopefully in June, we'll have that ready to review with the district so we can meet the timeline of July 26th. So next slide.
What is that supposed to do?
So the source water protection is protect your wells, basically, your water supply wells. Make sure there's no sources of contamination. No one's setting up a diesel refueling site, right on top of a well or next to a well, things like that. We just have to go through and identify possible sources of contamination, how far away they are, what we're doing to protect the influence to the groundwater and to protect that water source.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did they ever get that issue resolved from up at Fisher where the gas was coming up?
We'll talk about that here on one of the
Okay.
later slides.
All right.
So on the source water also, it's rather in depth. I
Yeah.
mean, without getting into too much detail, it's very in depth and you have to delineate your, time of travel for the groundwater and all of these things. It's you'll see once you have a draft, I'm
Right.
sure. It's in depth.
Right. Charter Oaks water main, so this is a 2-inch or less water main that goes around there, so replacing all that with a 4-inch line and just getting that upgraded. So I put down here mid-June to advertise. Will corrected me that maybe mid-June to get the survey in place, so we'll probably be, July, August to advertise this project. So let me go to the next slide. So at the wastewater plant, go to the next slide, there are a number of improvements. So this first slide just kind of gives you an overview of everything at the plant. On the far right picture, so when I talked about the screen, there's that bar screen building, so that's where everything comes in, it gets screened out. After that, there's a lift station that, and it goes through a valve vault, and there's an influent meter. That just almost makes a 180 and turns right back to the left and goes in this first cell right here. So that's the first cell. Down to the bottom of that screen is, on that picture, there's a chemical storage shed. We'll have a picture of that in a minute. There's overflow manhole to allow some overflow protection. And then there's a disinfection structure, which is an old steel tank in there that we'll have another picture of. So on the left side of the screen, the primary aerated lagoon, that's where everything comes in right now. It flows up to the north to the secondary aerated lagoon. There's a valve structure that allows it out to the intermediate lift station, which pumps it back down to the polishing lagoon. When you have really wet weather events, that pond up there to the north, that excess flow lagoon, holds water and keeps it from overflowing. So we just have a lot of extra capacity and volume there with the excess flow. So what we had looked at was a number of different alternatives to upgrade the treatment plant, all the way from building a brand new mechanical plant. One of the things that I saw with what you have here for the lagoon system is a lot of flexibility that you have here in this system. And for the cost that we're talking about here, a brand new mechanical wastewater plant would have cost you tens of millions of dollars, and we didn't want to go that route. So we'll kind of walk through what the improvements here are real quick on the next slide. So the first thing we did was kind of look at a population projection to see where the population is growing and what the trend is. So that's kind of the dots are the existing number of service connections, and then from that we just project it out to see how many service customers are going to be coming online over the years, just based on projections. So on the next slide, so what your plant right now is rated for 0.4 MGD, that's design average flow, and MGD just means millions of gallons a day. And then your maximum, design maximum flow is 1 million gallons a day. So you can see the current flows are already kind of exceeding what the permit says. There was some concern that inspectors come out, they look at the plant, they make note to the guys at the plant, hey, you're going way beyond, you're going beyond your capacity. You're not overloading the organic capacity, and that's what the real measure is. So we looked at the organic capacity, and I believe we're at like 60 or 70% of the daily average flow for organic capacity. So you have plenty of organic capacity. So that helped drive some of our thinking on the decisions or the alternatives we're going to look at, and why I want to keep using your lagoon, because you have plenty of capacity. And then these are just the projected flows and where we needed to get to. So when we did all of our design work, we designed for the future 0.8 million gallons a day for design average flow and 2 for the daily max flow. So we did all the design work for it, so we're set up for the future, we're set up for the next 20 years or better. So if you go to the next slide. So this is just the kind of the overall process flow diagram. And I promise there won't be a quiz after this. So, but just that kind of shows it in block form, what we just looked at on the picture. So I won't go through this in detail. One of the key things that we're doing is we're going to switch the flow from the first lagoon cell to the second lagoon cell. So in a traditional aerated lagoon system, you usually go into the bigger cell and your cells get smaller as you go. This was set up a little differently. Maybe just for geography of how the influent came in and how the lagoons were set up. So we're going to switch it because that gives us a lot more capacity, organic capacity, in the treatment facility. And we'll go to the next slide and we can see what we're doing here. So we looked at your organic loading. So BOD5 is just a measure of the organic strength of the wastewater. So that stands for biological oxygen demand. The capacity of the first lagoon is rated at 907 pounds of BOD per day. You see the green line is the projected loading, and around 2034 is when you start to exceed that capacity. So looking at here, when we get up to the 850 mark or so, or 820 mark or so, we'll have to be thinking about, what do we do to tell IEPA what we want to do for increasing the rated capacity of the treatment plant. But for right now, we have this window of opportunity, this 9 years or so of, or 11 years, I guess. Well, maybe not 9 years. It could be by the time you have to start talking to EPA. So the capacity then will change from 907 pounds of BOD per day to the 2178 pounds of BOD per day. So we have a lot of flexibility in the existing system to meet capacity concerns without having to build a brand new mechanical plant. If we go to the next slide. So this is the disinfection tank. It's out there right now, the pouring contact tank, an old steel tank that I don't think it's, what's that? Oh yeah, and your stellar employee. So this is one area, we're going to replace this with a concrete tank that's actually designed for disinfection. So this is, in my mind, too big, too long, it doesn't really, it's not ideal for the disinfection requirements.
Have you looked at UV at all?
Beg your pardon?
Did you look at UV at all?
We did not, just because of the nature of a lagoon system and with the lagoon exemption they have on the TSS limits that, it didn't seem like it was going to offer anything. Go to the next slide. So part of the other thing that's here is there's a chemical building right now that houses the hypochlorite, sodium bisulfite. I think that's all that's in there. And this is built over an old vault of an incoming line that comes into the plant. So it's just a fiberglass shed stuck over an old concrete slab that's there, and it's got that lid there. We're going to move this into a new building, and with the safety showers and the safety requirements that are code related now, and just get rid of this system. We're going to demolish or replace the pipe that's going through the vault, and then fill the vault in and abandon it as far as anybody having to be able to access that hatch, I think, because there's nothing down there anymore. So you go to the next slide. So this is just the list. So part of what we're doing, you saw when you looked at the screen slides, that screen building is not code compliant, and it's kind of a nightmare. So we're going to replace the entire building. We're going to keep the screen that's there and the structure below it. We're just going to build a new building around the screen. We're going to upgrade the raw inflow pump station, so we're going to put new pumps in that'll be rated for the new capacity of the treatment plant. As I mentioned, we're going to reverse the flow between the first and second lagoons, so we get you a lot more capacity for that organic capacity. All new diffusers at the bottom of the lagoon, new blowers. The intermediate pump station is, there's one pump in there now, so we're going to make it a duplex pump station. It's got a really funky access hatch that you go down a little bit and you access another hatch to try to get down to it. So we're going to remove all that and make it much easier for staff to be able to get into that pump station and to remove those pumps. One of the things with the excess flow, during the summer months, maybe August, September, you have very little discharge from the plant. So that excess flow system sits without a whole lot of movement. So we are actually putting in recycle lines to pull that flow back to the head end of the plant so we can recycle it and keep the odors down. And I believe we've added aeration to that as well. So we've got an aeration line that'll go to that. So we're going to help, alleviate any odors that become an issue during the summer months when it's just all stagnant out there, when you don't have enough flow to flow in and through. As I mentioned, the new chemical feed building, and they're replacing the disinfection structure. And so that's about a $7 million price tag, and that's a part of the IEP SRF loan that we have going on right now as well. So if you go to the next slide. So the wastewater treatment plant and the Lake of the Woods lift station are both SRF loans. So all that means it's a revolving fund loan. For the district, I think that's about a 1.1 or 1.2% interest rate for 20 years. The construction permits are approved. The project planning is approved, so that's there's a deadline end of March. We had to do a whole bunch of stuff to get project plan approval. What EPA is doing now is they're creating what they call their intended use plan. So it's the list of all the communities that are getting loans. in any given year, IEPA they have roughly 800 or 900 million dollars worth of loan dollars to loan out. They will get 1.6 to 1.8 billion dollars worth of requests. So we think that you guys will be in good shape to get on the intended use plan. We have demonstrated readiness to proceed with getting construction permits, getting the project planning approved. So we're in really good shape. We'll just have to see how they rank us, for that intended use plan.
So, like the lagoon system, you said that will carry you for like another 20 years, is that what you're?
Right.
So, pretty much when the loan's up, it's about
Right.
time to
Yeah,
renew it
so depending on when we have to think about revising the capacity, so we'll have to wait and see how organic loading, impacts and over time. If we get where we're seeing that trend, get to 2028, 2030, and we think, okay, we're looking like we're gonna get to 85% of our capacity, then we'll have to have a discussion with EPA and see where we go. In order to increase the capacity, things will change on the permit, key thing being ammonia and phosphorus. And the plan for ammonia is pretty simple. All we need to do is cover that first lagoon, and we get really good ammonia removal to keep the heat up. So that's kind of been in the plan there. And then phosphorus removal we can handle, pretty simply either by chemical injection right at the beginning, which just means a little bit more sludge will have to accumulate. But so we can talk about those things when we get close to the organic capacity. But
To get your increase in organic capacity with just the changes that you've talked about is pretty incredible. Like, that's really, really good. Not many facilities would be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's good.
That's
It's
why
a huge cost savings.
right. That's why I thought the investment in the existing system was a better investment than $30 million on a brand new wastewater plant. So it'd probably be about an 18 to 24 month construction time frame. We should hear in June from the intended use plan, and then we should be ready to advertise in July and get a contractor on board in the fall of the year. And then he'll be starting diligently in the spring of 2024, most likely. So.
And when will the IEPA announce the loan? When will you know that?
June timeframe is when they'll send us out a draft intended use plan, and then communities can kind of make the case for, hey, we're not on it, we want to be on it, or other communities may say, hey, we didn't get it ready in time, and so others may drop off. So all our goal was is to make sure we're ready, we have everything ready to go. Next slide. So this is the northward expansion that you asked about. So this is the Peoples Gas impacted wells to the north. So what we're looking at, we'll have a drawing here in a minute, but so the basic conception is Route 47 at the north of, I'm forgetting the subdivision name, Thornwood? We'll tie into that system and put a booster pump station, and then we'll feed water to the north. So the backbone will be along Route 47, and then we'll feed off some of those to hit those homes that are impacted. There's 140,000 linear feet of water main piping, varying from 6-inch to 4-inch to 3-inch. We're about 95% complete with the design. There's a little bit of extra survey that we just got in to help with things like creek crossings or road crossings or critical elevations we want to get. So that's being incorporated right now. The IEP permit will be sent in this week. There are about 200 homeowners roughly that we would need to get easements from. That has not been started, so that is an effort that we'll have to talk about, how we go about that. So that was something that the previous board didn't want to get started on agreements without you guys really having the lead in that and see how that
I
direction.
don't imagine that.
That's first.
I beg your pardon, did you have a question?
No, I just said imagine that.
So the construction cost estimate, for the overall project is roughly $10 million. There's a first phase plan of $3.8 million, which would be the pump station and then the backbone line of Route 47 without feeding off to everybody, but just get the critical homes that are have the gas impacted wells, so.
Is this like some of the states covering this, right?
So the design dollars are covered by the county, so it's county ARPA funds for the design. My understanding, I don't know all the particulars of this, but I was under the impression that the state did allocate $3.8 million for the first phase. But I don't know where that stands. It sounds like it was allocated, but it wasn't appropriated. So I don't know exactly, all those political things that happen with that. So we can go to the next slide. So this is just kind of the overall map, so I'm sorry it's so, drawn out, but it's, there's a lot of, all these little individual rectangles are sheets, that we have in our drawing set. So there's 150 sheets that just showing plan and profile of the new water main throughout the system. So you can see up to the north, the red dots are the ones that are definitely impacted by natural gas. And then biogenic and non-definitive, so those was definitions we were using 5 years ago or so as the whole process kind of started to look at this. So we have it thought through in terms of 3 phases, so you can see kind of up there, and I won't go through those in detail, but this could be almost split up into as many phases as you wanted to. And the big question is the $10 million, who's going to fund that? So that's that hasn't been really thought through.
Does People's Gas have a money outlay because they created the problem?
Yeah, and that's what the hope would be, but I don't know how that will all work. So that'll be stuff we'll have to talk about. What we wanted to do was to meet our obligation of the design agreement that the county funded, get to the point where we have a readiness to proceed, and then figure out with the district how we can help you find funding. Whether that's People's Gas, whether that's state, whether that's assessment. Yeah, I mean, it's, so it'll be some decisions that have to be made on how we go forward.
How many homes are affected by this?
I don't know the exact number, to be honest with you. I thought it was in the 100 range, but I might be wrong. I don't see that many dots up there. So
that's each one of those represents one residence.
I think so, but to be honest with you, I was looking at some older stuff, and we had a lot more dots. So I'm not sure if the design engineer through this design part, put all the dots on there.
I think this might just be phase 1.
Could be.
I'm pretty sure that was in our meeting last month. It was.
So what I can do is provide you the documentation that shows you where all the dots are. So that's,
And I've heard that there's some people that said that they were going to opt out, but that they weren't going to accept the water. Is that figured in here at all, or no?
That will come into play if you decide to fund it as a district project and financing and recoup it from the users. The lower the number of the users, the higher the bill. So that will be a question that we'll have to think about and decide which direction to go forward with.
This represents houses probably north of the Shiloh Church.
Yep,
Yes, a few of them,
Yes.
up to 2,800, I think.
right on the curve.
Yeah.
Go to the next slide. And then there's, this is the booster pump station, so we'll take the water line in, from Thornwood, and go into the booster pump station. We have a little storage tank there as well. And so this is just laid out on aerials. We don't have any permission from the property owner to do a survey or anything, so that's another one of the decisions that have to be made is property acquisition or easements for this structure as well. Excuse me. Go to the next slide. And then I just put on here, we have a whole list of properties that we're crossing, so we have a spreadsheet that show, this is just a cutout from it, but what the address is, last and first names, just from the GIS and assessment webpage, and the parcel number. And on the right 2 columns were like which drawings these are shown on. So we're starting to create an index, trying to decide, how we go forward with easements. So there's a lot of easements here. So next slide. So then, going on to future projects, stuff that's kind of been talked about, or stuff that we've identified or seen, or that Kurt has mentioned. The existing water tower has a number of repairs that need to be made, probably coating the tower as well, I would think. The other thought is, either do those repairs and put in a new water tower as well. We don't really have what we should have for elevated storage. We should have, how many hours do we have elevated storage? About a third of a day?
I would say a third.
Yeah, a third of a day. We should have a whole day of elevated storage. So one thought was to look at a new 300,000 gallon water tower at Prairie View and 74. Right in that area, there's kind of a high point there, which would be a good spot for a water tower to serve the residents. So that's something that's kind of hasn't really been defined or developed, but it's thinking out there. The water treatment plant, as you mentioned, the softening control valve that's there, it's a single point of failure. So we did look at some potential options of getting a spare valve and putting it on the shelf, things like that. But if that thing ever fails, you're going to have a hard time producing water. So it's been a concern because of the way that system is designed. In the future, we need to think about increasing the plant capacity from 1,000 gallons per minute to 1,500 gallons per minute as the service area grows or the number of customers grows. So we'll have to keep that in mind. Then the last three bullets are just stuff that comes up from time to time. Developers come in, want to develop an area. We're usually tasked with helping to look at what they're planning on for water, for sewer, for stormwater. We work in conjunction with the village on that and make sure that what's being done for the district is following the district ordinances and requirements. So that's just on an as-needed basis. The developer will come in and he'll task us with looking at the development and making sure that it's meeting the requirements. As time comes up, then Kurt and everybody else around the field, they identify, hey, we got this 5 blocks of water main that it's more repair clamps than it is water main, so let's replace that. So those projects kind of come up on an as-needed basis or as they get identified from year to year. And the same with sewer lining. If we identify an area that's got a lot of damaged sewer or issues with a lot of water coming in, Kurt, they say, hey, let's get some sewer lining going in this area in order to get less and less water in the sewer collection system. So, and I think that's the last slide. Yeah, so my next step slide is blank. So we're just continuing on with our work, and I'm happy to come to whatever board meetings you would like me to report progress and keep you guys informed of where we're at with everything. So for the foreseeable future, I'll just plan to be here until you tell me you don't want to see my face again for a while, and just keep you guys up to date on progress.
Can we get a copy of
Yes.
this? I mean, I don't know if you
Yep.
do have it or.
I have it.
Yep, she has it, and if you'd like me to, I can make a PDF of it, Sandra.
Yeah,
I can do it.
Okay, yeah, just go ahead and
No
make it.
problem.
That way it's a little smaller size.
I have a pretty important
That means
question.
if you wanted it in paper form, we can get it in paper form.
That would be great. You did remember us, but now that's all right. I need to find the restroom fast.
You show them the rest of it.
Yeah.
Right after the one.
All right, yeah, just takes me a while to get up.
I might want a paper one too. Sometimes it seems like that kind of stuff to me is easier to understand on paper than it is on
Thank you.
the screen. Huh?
Yeah.
I get that.
So like that control
Okay.
valve that you said,
Yeah.
is that like something that you said
So what it
you're
is,
kind of done for?
yeah, so the water softener system, there's one control valve that sits in the middle of all the water softeners that feeds, brine through it, then finished water through it, and it's kind of an in and out valve. So part of what we've been doing over the years is doing acid cleaning, additional acid cleaning systems. So some of it was done on the part of the district, some of it we convinced the vendor you need to come in and do this. So it's the calcification of it or the buildup in it that could become a problem. So it's kind of the first thing when I started working at Donahue and I got the first tour through the plant and saw that one thing, my first thought was that is a single point of failure. And I hate to see those things in a structure or a facility that's critical mission to supplying water. So, but it is what it is, and we're doing our workarounds. We have a couple memos that we looked at, what can we do, can we replace it? We don't wanna change the whole system, that would be super expensive, but, you know, maybe a spare valve, you know, or how fast can we get a valve from, you know, from the vendor if it does have an issue for replacement, you know, so those are the kinds of things that we've looked at in the past.
How much does one of those usually cost?
You said $100 grand for the valve?
I think it was a few years ago, it was
Yeah.
100 grand, yeah.
Yeah, so current pricing.
And it's not,
Probably more.
it's not a crazy high-tech piece of equipment, it's just a big poly circle, big, yeah.
With a bunch of different ports in and out.
Yeah.
All the way out.
It's insane.
If it failed, how long would it take to change it?
We had to pull it 2 years ago, and just the process to pull it, setting up with an engineer to actually set the rig, I think took almost a month just to pull it. But that was also the first time, we know how to do it now, but it was done with the company that makes it as well, so that's kind of what took so long. I think the company's out of Sweden.
Right.
What happens if that fails? When we talked about a point of failure, does that mean that we don't have any water?
No, we can bypass
You
it,
can bypass, but it's gonna be hard water.
so we can bypass, you just won't have softened water for that time period, so.
Not quite as critical.
Alrighty.
That's all I have, unless you have any other questions.
What did I miss?
Really important. It's not on here, but I know we talked about.
Money, money, money.
Well,
Can we do that, or?
that valve that we're talking about,
Two
it's a
things.
single point of failure,
See,
but
it's a
if
general-
you don't have water, it would just be hard
I
to
told them I'll
solve.
put an executive session in here, I didn't do that.
So you wouldn't have soft water.
That's what we're talking about.
3:30, so I said,
No, it was
we'll keep the
next
meeting
up to
open, do it 2 hours, it's light out,
Oh.
and then we'll come back and adjourn the meeting. Well, it's dark out, so the tour isn't really as productive as been necessary. What you could do at your next meeting, you could just do a plant tour at the start of the meeting, and then come back in and do your business, but I think a plant tour,
You can still do an interior plant tour, 90% of what we see is inside, so. It's up
For
to you guys.
this one here.
Yeah, for your sewer plant would be a little difficult.
yeah, no, but I think it'd be better to do it at your next meeting. That way everything's light, and they were supposed to put that on the agenda, just like they were in executive session, they didn't do that. Those two things didn't make the agenda, so we won't have an executive session. And if you put the tour on and then move into your business part of the meeting on the agenda, if somebody wants to come along, then come along.
All right, before we adjourn, I just want to say thank you to everybody that came out and taking time out of your night, and, yeah, so.
Have fun.
We will, and with that being said, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right,